some of these folks, when you listen to audiobook, they have all these different voices, and it's the same person.
Yes.
And sometimes it's even hard to tell that the same person.
You know, I've become a little used to it in a scary way to where it doesn't affect me probably like it used to. I mean, I've been doing this particularly for going on 9 years now, you know, so I've been hearing all those voices in my head for a long time now, you know, but it's just really cool, and it still amazes me, especially when I work with a narrator, because of course my job is to make sure that they stay consistent with every character, and I mark them, and we keep a good log of them. But some narrators don't even need that. They could come in on day 6 and they can recall a character from day 1.
DonTae and I have done 9 audiobooks together.
It's crazy, brother.
It's crazy. And we've made some of the best audiobooks in my space as an author. We're one of the top-selling, I'm one of the top-selling audiobook authors out there, and between the two of us, we've downloaded well more than 500,000 audiobooks, which is huge. And if you listen to my audiobooks, and a lot of people do because they like it that I read the book, and there's a reason for that, because I want something that's passionate, I want something that carries the message. I've got the ability with DonTae to change up the book a little bit, so the audiobooks are, in a lot of cases, different than the written book because we want it to sound better. But DonTae's fingerprints, his artwork are on all those books. They wouldn't be the same without DonTae. So I wanted to grab a few minutes of your time.
Of course.
Because you work with not just me, but you work with tons of authors. You work with lots of big stars. So you've got some major celebrities.
I have some fun stuff that
I know,
I've done.
that you've been working on.
Yeah.
And as a trade, you're an audio engineer.
Yes.
You are like the executive producer, engineer.
Yeah, I'm the head engineer, you know, among other things. We were just talking about all the things that I do, you know, but, you know, head engineer is the official title. So, you know, a lot of the big stuff, like when the big guys like you come in, you know, I'm automatically put on that. And I also manage the team here, you know, so make sure all the engineers are good, make sure that they have what they need and they are trained right to do what we do every day to the highest, because we're the biggest in the Southeast, you know, Lantern Audio. So, you know, we have to make sure that our work is up to par. So I make sure that the team does that.
So let's talk about audiobooks, because a lot of people love audiobooks.
Yeah.
So they're downloading audiobooks, they're listening to both nonfiction and fiction. And I'll give you my take.
Yes.
There are some audiobooks that put me to sleep. Like I'm driving down the road. I was listening to one this morning. I'm driving down the road and I forget where I am.
Wow.
Because
okay.
I'm off someplace else because the audiobook isn't keeping me engaged.
Yeah.
And there's some audiobooks. I listened to one. It was a fiction book. Then I was driving along on a dark road and it was so good. Like the narration was so good, it scared me. I started looking around thinking I was like in the book.
Yeah.
So what's the art, I guess, and maybe even science, of creating great audiobooks?
Wow, so that's a great question. You know, I would say the one thing that isn't involved in creating a great audiobook is somebody just coming in and reading. You know, and I know that might sound crazy to the people listening out there. Like, you mean to tell me that somebody isn't coming in and reading? Well, yes, they're coming in and reading, but they're coming in and getting into the story. So they're not just reading a script. Because if you're just reading the script, you're doing it wrong. You have to understand every sentence. In fictional pieces, you have to become those characters. You have to understand the character's background. You know, you have to understand accents, you know, tonality, you know, and that's what we do as engineers and directors. I call us technical directors because we handle technical stuff in the room, but we are directing the talent. So just with the fictional stuff, for example, if we have an Australian character, I have to make sure that that Australian is on point and authentic as the talent can do. And in cases like you with a nonfiction piece, I just have to make sure that you sound like you. You know, so whether that's, I mean, we've been working together for a long time, so I know what you should sound like. But if I'm working with somebody new who's like a keynote speaker, I might watch some of their videos, see how they perform on stage, kind of get an idea for the tonality and what people expect from them. and I try to bring that out of them in the booth, because they're typically going to come in here and want to read because they feel like, I'm reading an audiobook, let me just read the script, let me do it very stilted. And I'm like, no, 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 let's not do it stilted. Let's put your personality in there. Let's make it right. Let's make it polished. But I'm going to direct them to get the best performance and the best version of them out of it.
And that kind of brings up a point about great audiobooks. It's kind of like great video.
Yeah.
There's movement. And when you're just reading, you get the same pattern over and over and over again, the same tone of voice over and over again. And if there's nothing that breaks the pattern, it's really easy for the listener to lose attention.
Right.
So the best audiobooks, when I think about it, are the ones where there's inflection and there's movement and there's pauses, and then they're going fast and they're going slow.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that you do with me. Like you'll say, you'll slow down here, or let's go back and do that again. And just a few minutes ago, we were in the booth working on the audiobook virtual training.
Yes.
And we were like, I don't know, we did one sentence like 10 times in a row just to get the last word, like the way that we ended the sentence right.
Yeah.
So as you're working with all these different people who are doing the audiobooks, let's just talk about narrators real quickly, because I think people are probably interested in that. What are in your standpoint, what are the ideal narrators to work with as a producer and a director? Like, who do you like to work with the most?
So I like to work with narrators that understand what you just said. You know, I think of making an audiobook like coloring a picture. You know, if you color a picture and you use one color, it's very one-dimensional. It's kind of boring. But as soon as you add different colors, like you add blue for the sky, you play with the color, you know, you add dimension to that thing and you add character to that thing, you know, and it's more interesting. So I like to work with narrators that understand that concept. You know, for example, when we do that sentence over 10 times, you know that it's not about you. It's about the content. It's about getting it right. It's about making it right for the listener. Because once we play with that pace and we get those words right and we get that coloration right, the book is much better. They're like, oh my gosh, that's when you get the great reviews. Like, oh my gosh, I felt like he was talking to me. Oh my gosh, it felt like he was right in the car with me. That's what you want. And that's the kind of people I like to work with, because they are okay with me pushing them a little bit. They're okay with doing something over 10 times. If we're tired and it's been 5 hours, it's been 6 hours, sometimes it's been 10 hours that we've been in the studio, we're still pushing in that last hour, you know? So that's the type of person I like to work with.
I personally can't even imagine doing 10 hours straight of audio. So, because like 3 hours, I feel like somebody's beat me with a baseball bat. It's really, really hard.
It is.
Just to concentrate that long.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably easy. I know in my own mind, sometimes we're getting to the end of the day and my brain's playing tricks on me, and it's like, it'll be okay. Just, that'll be okay. And I think that's one of the reasons I like working with you, is that I know you're not going to let me off the hook. And I know I'm not going to let you off the hook.
Right.
So you kind of, it's sort of an accountability partner to make sure
really
that you do it right. So let's just flip to, because so many people listen to audiobooks, let's flip to fiction books.
Okay, fiction.
Because I think it's fascinating, the people that come in and read books. You've got actors, you've got people who work on stage, and some of these folks, when you listen to audiobook, they have all these different voices, and it's the same person.
Yes.
And sometimes it's even hard to tell the same person. And I just want you to talk about, just maybe working with people who do that. The level of talent that it takes to switch from character to character in different voices. Because sometimes I feel like they're got to be absolutely schizophrenic by the time they get done.
Man, it is fun, and it is, I've become a little used to it in a scary way, to where it doesn't affect me probably like it used to. I mean, I've been doing this, but particularly for going on 9 years now, so I've been hearing all those voices in my head for a long time now, but it's just really cool, and it still amazes me, especially when I work with a narrator, because of course my job is to make sure that they stay consistent with every character, and I mark them, and we keep a good log of them. But some narrators don't even need that. They could come in on day 6 and they can recall a character from day 1, and it might be a male doing a female voice, and he is killing that female voice, and vice versa, So it's just a lot of fun, a lot of times, we have to do research. Like if we're doing an accent that the narrator is not as familiar with, we might be on YouTube researching videos. We might listen to interviews, and just to hear them go through the motions of trying to figure out okay, this is what makes that dialect what it is. This is how these people inflect. If I do this way, it'll come out this way. If I go here in my voice register, it'll come out this way. So just to hear them play with that and to talk through them, because I kind of have the privilege because I'm West Indian, so whenever we get a book where there's a West Indian character, I get to kind of use my expertise, and kind of coach them through that. Like I was just doing one 2 weeks ago where it was a Jamaican dialect, I have a lot of Jamaican friends, I have family members who have lived in Jamaica. So, I was able to kind of really coach them through that. And that's always a lot of fun, and I've become, pretty familiar with a lot of accents myself just doing this over the years. I do a lot of the Hispanic stuff, a lot of the Spanish stuff that comes in here, and I understand that language pretty fluently now just because I've done so many of it, just because I've always been good at following along. So because I get thrown into all those sessions, I am now the guy to do, like we were just doing a podcast, pretty cool podcast. It was all in Spanish, and I'm following along with the story and I'm communicating with the director and we're just talking about what's happening in the story. And she was surprised at how much I was understanding, so just stuff like that.
That's an interesting way to learn how to speak Spanish.
Yeah, right.
Listen to audiobooks.
Yeah.
Audiobooks as a value are a pretty good deal, right? You get a subscription on Audible, or there's a bunch of places where you can pay for them straight up and download them. I like to pay for them because I like to keep them in my library.
Of course.
Because I buy books that I want to listen to again and again. But for, $20 or whatever, you get an audiobook. Tell people what it takes, like how many hours, the effort. Let's go from the very beginning, from concept all the way through editing and producing.
Yeah.
What it takes to produce an audiobook, so people understand the value that they're getting for almost nothing.
I haven't actually thought about it until just now, how much of a deal it really is, because we spend a lot of time working on these books. Like our book is going to come up to about 4 days that we're working on it, 4 days, and how we were doing 6-hour sessions 4 days, 6-hour sessions. And of course that had to be planned out, that had to be scheduled, your book had to be edited, then they had to make the script for us to have on the iPad, make sure that was right. And then after it goes to our editors, they edit the audio, then it goes to QC, they make sure that, of course we make a lot of changes. So that either makes their job easier or harder depending on who the QCer is. So it goes to QC, then it goes to mastering. So there's this long process, for a product that, if you spend a couple bucks a month with Audible, you can listen to as much as you would like, and it's a pretty sweet deal because a lot of work goes into it. To do a book, and I would say that this is on the shorter end of some of the stuff that we do, but even to do a book like this, we're talking 2 weeks of production, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So almost 80 hours of work to get a book out. So and that's not including writing the book in the first place, which takes a year.
Right.
And then if you're the author like me and you do it, that means there's a week of your life that is completely shot because you're doing the book. But then you've got all of these technicians and trained and professional people that are looking on it. So the person doing QC knows what to listen for.
Right.
Because when we come back and do pickups, so pickups are what happens when they go back and listen to the whole book and they go, I don't like that word.
Yeah.
So I have to come back in and then we play through the entire book and we fix all the words. Well, I'm always amazed that a human being would listen to it at that level and find those small things.
Man, what our QC department, shout out to our QC department. I feel like we probably have the best in the world. So shout out to the Lantern Audio QC department, what they are able to do, the things that they are able to find. I'm pretty good at finding stuff just because, I've done it for a while. So I can usually find words, but sometimes there's stuff that I literally weren't able to find, and they might find this random article where they find the word, and I'm just like, wow, that's so amazing. And the things that they pick up on sometimes, and with you, obviously it's a little bit different because we make a lot of changes, so I usually tell them, hey, QC, these changes were intentional, but if there's something that didn't make sense, it didn't come across right, of course, send it back and we'll fix it, and they're just really good about that. And sometimes they send something and I'm like, okay, yeah, we definitely need to do that again.
Hey, I'm doing a happy dance because you watched this video. Make sure that you click like and subscribe so that you never miss one of our amazing sales training videos.